America, kidnappers trade lives for cash, and cash for weapons. Outlaws target the rich, exploit the innocent, until one volatile event tears the lid off a ring of terrorists, exposing their crimes, separated by years and by borders, and pitting them against the investigators of Interpol. Jurisdiction? The world. When crimes are committed, an international organization unites police officers to deliver justice. Interpol investigates. In Brazil, a wealthy businessman gets kidnapped. The tense negotiations air on live TV. 3,600 miles away, in Nicaragua, another kind of disaster. Seemingly unrelated, yet inextricably linked. Decades of violence and revolution once tore these streets apart. And the residents of Managua, Nicaragua thought those days had passed. May 23rd, 1993. While most people in the Santa Rosa neighborhood outside of the capital sleep, a nightmarish blast exposes the hideous secret right under their feet. And unearths a crucial piece of evidence, missing for almost 4 years.
The explosion was very loud, frightening. There was a lot of dust, windows broken. It totally destroyed 16 houses.
The blast awakens Managua police officer Marlon Montano, who lives nearby. He's the first on the scene and gets right to work. Three explosions demolish an auto repair shop and the neighborhood around it. Emergency personnel respond quickly. Dozens of injured residents wander in a daze. Authorities rush to set up field triage units to treat the wounded, as rescuers search for people trapped in the extensive wreckage. The destruction reminds many of the earthquakes that have rocked the region in the past. But this is no natural disaster. Montano's first job, find out what caused such a large explosion. Investigators suspect a propane gas tank blew up. But some distinctive metal fragments strewn throughout the area suggest something more sinister. Authorities find remnants of a grenade launcher crushed into a front yard. Montano and the investigators approach the obvious flashpoint of the explosion, the auto repair shop, where they discover something much more grisly: human remains. By coincidence, criminal investigator Carlos Bendaña also runs Nicaragua's Interpol division at the time, a job that will soon prove crucial.
The blast caused total destruction. I saw body parts from victims more than 100 yards from the site.
In the chaos, police make another startling discovery: a weapons bunker hidden under the auto repair shop. As investigators sift through the debris, they uncover a steel-reinforced concrete stronghold, complete with metal doors. Tunnels branch out, leading to several more underground chambers, housing a massive arsenal of deadly weapons.
I'm talking about AK-47s and missiles, bazookas.
In the bunker, police find nearly 24 surface-to-air missiles, many with their serial numbers obliterated, and a store of C4 plastic explosives produced only for the military. But Bendaña and the investigators know these explosives have another use. On the black market, they're a favorite item for terrorists. And that escalates the importance of this case right to the top. The discovery of the illegal weapons arsenal and its terrorist links alarm law-abiding Nicaraguans. After decades of upheaval under the Somoza dictatorship, followed by a revolution by the left-wing Sandinistas, Nicaragua still struggles for stability. The rebirth of democracy began in 1990, when Nicaraguans elected moderate Violeta Chamorro to the presidency. Yet trouble still plagues the country. Guerrilla bands remain armed and organized. Chamorro knows she needs help to dismantle them. After a 14-year absence, Nicaragua rejoins Interpol. The organization offers its investigative brains and muscle to the struggling nation.
They didn't have the experience to handle all of this. The country had just gotten out of a military regime.
Brazilian Federal Police Chief Romea Tuma is the vice president of Interpol in Latin America. The bunker proves terrorists are working to destabilize Latin America again.
President Chamorro was trying to reinstall democracy. It was alarming that they found these kinds of weapons in their country.
Then, as they continue sifting through the weapons bunker, they make an even more chilling discovery. Proof of a global terrorist conspiracy. The stash includes hundreds of fraudulent identification papers from over 20 countries. Police find driver's licenses, birth certificates, and passports with the photos of known guerrilla leaders, enabling them to operate anywhere in the world. Among the papers are documents for 2 Canadian nationals, David Spencer and Christine Lamont, both convicted, controversially, in a high-profile kidnapping several years before.
They had 3-4 different passports apiece, some with photographs with eyeglasses, some without. They would use these to move secretly from country to country under different names.
To the investigators, the documents show that terrorist groups throughout the world had banded together to form a well-organized terror cooperative, a precursor of organizations like today's Al-Qaeda. The new discovery changes the investigation. Former U.S. Interpol Director John Emhoff.
Once you have a cache of information such as this, then the impetus isn't so much just to solve the crime of who blew up this building, but to also understand how far-reaching this criminal enterprise, this terrorist enterprise is.
The terror groups likely entered the country years earlier, while the revolutionary Sandinistas ruled.
Nicaragua, under the Sandinistas, became an asylum. Any foreign group involved in violent, anti-government political activity was offered protection there and found refuge.
When the Sandinistas fell, many of these violent refugees stayed behind. Now Interpol realizes they've combined their resources, becoming well-armed and organized. Managua police take no chances. They place the fake IDs, passports, files, and other documents under heavy guard. President Chamorro orders Nicaraguan Interpol Chief Carlos Bendaña to lead the investigation and to contact the countries cited in the documents. Something big is brewing. Terrorism, possibly on a global level. And Interpol means to stop it.
I used Interpol's resources to call different countries to see if they would collaborate with the Nicaraguan police.
Interpol's Romeo Tuma is one of the first to respond. He travels from Brazil to Managua to help organize the manhunt for the group behind the stolen passports and forged IDs. He faces a daunting task. The massive amount of evidence, over 6,000 documents, fills 40 file boxes. Meanwhile, Managua police work the local angle. They track down an address for the proprietor of the auto repair shop, Miguel Moreno. Apparently a typical small business owner who's harboring known terrorists. Investigators need to find out why. Police raid the suspect's home. But Moreno's gone. The respectable auto repair shop was a flawless cover for the terrorist groups to stash weapons and documents. But how much did the employees know about it?
We found out that a night watchman at the shop had been injured in the explosion. And we went to the hospital to question him.
Police learned that shop owner Miguel Moreno's real name is Abilio Diniz, a member of the terrorist organization called Spanish Basque ETA. He's wanted in Spain in connection with several terrorist acts, including murder. Managua police notify Interpol.
Obviously, there's a time element here. That has to be done quickly. So what are we talking about? We're talking about an ability to communicate with the other country immediately, and that spells Interpol.
Striking before the trail goes cold, Interpol issues a red notice for the arrest of Abilio Diniz. The terrorist now appears on Interpol's most wanted list, alerting member countries to apprehend him. But he's probably already assumed another identity. Among the illicit documents recovered from the bunker, investigators find dossiers on business, political, and corporate leaders from Latin America, Mexico, and Brazil, leading to a chilling realization.
The dossiers confirmed they were financing their organizations through kidnapping businessmen in Latin-speaking countries.
Each dossier contains a complete profile on each potential kidnapping victim. Daily travels and personal habits, security concerns, maps, suggested ransom amounts.
The best kind of information that a law enforcement agency can get is information that's anticipatory of a crime.
Interpol now has a leg up on the kidnappers. They act fast to protect the targets. Interpol notifies the countries where the targeted subjects live. In many cases, they foil the kidnappers, but in one case, they are too late. One of the dossiers names a Brazilian tycoon kidnapped almost 4 years earlier. December 11th, 1989. Supermarket magnate Abilio Diniz, one of the wealthiest men in Brazil, leaves his mansion for work in Sao Paulo. The Diniz company, built by his father, has an annual profit of $65 million. Diniz, separated from his wife, lives with his sister. He has a close-knit family, and his kidnappers have studied it very thoroughly, preparing to make their move. In less than a minute, the gunmen capture Abilio Diniz and disappear, thinking they left behind no witnesses. But their flawless plan has a crack. 1993, an explosion in Nicaragua reveals a cache of weapons and plans for a string of kidnappings by an alliance of terrorist groups. The kidnapping plot sheds new light on the 1989 abduction of 52-year-old Brazilian businessman Abilio Diniz.
Abilio Diniz is one of the richest men in Brazil. He is the president of one of the largest supermarket chains in the country. He was on his way to work. He was driving in his car.
Isabel Vincent was the Latin American bureau chief for the Toronto Globe and Mail newspaper and lived in Brazil at that time.
The kidnappers cut him off with a van, a fake ambulance that they had created, and they drove him off.
A witness to the abduction recognizes Diniz and rushes to the millionaire's mansion to notify his sister, who lives with him.
Hello. Okay?
Organized and efficient, the kidnappers quickly cover their tracks and vanish with Diniz. By the time the witness tells Deniz's sister what he saw, it's too late. Terrified, she calls the police. Nelson Guimarães, the chief of Sao Paulo's anti-kidnapping division, takes the call.
I always say that kidnapping is made of two halves, like a game. The first half belongs to the kidnappers. Our main goal is to preserve that victim's life. In the second half, it's up to us to recover the victim.
John Emhoff, former head of Interpol in the United States.
There's always this cat and mouse game that goes on between the criminals and the police officer. And it really is part of why police come to this work. They want to play that chess game.
But the game is a dangerous one. An epidemic of abductions in Latin America in the late 80s have left many victims dead. Over 500 abductions in 1 year alone. Investigators vow to bring this one to a safe and peaceful ending. It won't be easy. These kidnappers are skilled, experienced, and violent. If they don't get paid, their victims will die, along with anyone who gets in the way. 30 excruciating minutes after they snatch Abilio Diniz, the kidnappers make their first contact. A woman warns the Diniz family not to contact police if they want him back safely.
Onde ele está?
She says she will call back with further instructions and will kill Diniz if their demands are not met. No one knows whether the kidnappers have already harmed Diniz. His family, desperate to learn if he is all right, will do anything to free him. Within hours, police find the vehicle used in the kidnapping just a few miles from the Diniz home. The kidnappers' attempt to disguise it as an ambulance only worked during the heist.
When we found the ambulance, we started to examine it thoroughly. We practically took it apart. Inside the ventilation system, we found a business card from a mechanic's garage near the center of the city.
The police try to calm the Diniz family and convince them to trust the experienced investigators rather than act on their own.
We instantly set in motion our plans, tapping phones and putting agents out on the street.
After several tense hours waiting, the Diniz family gets another call.
Hello.
This time, the kidnappers name their price for the safe return of Abilio Diniz, $30 million.
Darei o que queres.
Following advice from the police, the family agrees but tells them it will take time to get the money. The kidnappers say they will call back later to arrange a drop.
Obrigada.
Investigators leave to coordinate the operation from police headquarters. Meanwhile, at their hideout, the kidnappers blast music into Diniz's cell to drown out conversation and disorient their captive. It's psychological terror. The police know that every tick of the clock works against them. The kidnappings they don't solve quickly often end in death. Brazilian police rush to the auto repair shop printed on the card found in the fake ambulance.
We questioned the owner and started to unveil the mystery of the kidnapping.
The owner informs them that a middle-aged man and a younger man wearing glasses recently brought the vehicle in for repairs. He did not get any names, but he gives the police the contact number for the two men. Investigators trace the phone number to an apartment in Sao Paulo. Officers enter the apartment. But find it empty. Technicians install microphones and transmitters, hoping to learn where Diniz is being held.
Then we started to do surveillance on the building where the phone was. We even got an apartment close by.
They see several men coming and going.
Our investigators listened to the people inside the apartment. We were certain that these were the people who left the ambulance behind.
When one suspect gets left alone at the apartment, officers sweep in to get him. In the raid, police arrest Ulysses Acevedo, a known terrorist. But he's in no mood to cooperate. While the Diniz family hopes and prays, Brazilian police know that time is running out. Police and Interpol pursue the kidnappers of wealthy Brazilian businessman Abilio Diniz. Their investigation leads authorities to an apartment in Sao Paulo and to a known terrorist named Ulysses Acevedo. Investigators haul Acevedo in for interrogation. He claims to know nothing about the Diniz abduction, but authorities don't buy it. Nelson Guimarães.
He has a long criminal history. He belonged to a revolutionary movement in Chile, the MIR, and he committed some robberies there. He had a knowledge of paramilitary strategy
apartment where Brazilian police arrested Acevedo, they discover a lead that brings them another step closer to finding Abilio Diniz.
We found a light bill for an apartment on Charles Darwin Street. It was another place they rented for their kidnapping activities.
Police stake out the apartment, laying low so the kidnappers won't spot them.
Since we still didn't know where the victim was, we didn't want to raise the kidnappers' suspicions. We didn't want to make too much noise because it could jeopardize the victim's life.
Instead of raiding the place, they decide to take the suspects down one by one as they appear. Very quietly, police apprehend 4 more suspects from the Rua Charles Darwin address. But still, no sign of Abilio Diniz. Five days after the abduction, the kidnappers try to increase the pressure on the Diniz family, hoping to extract money from the wealthy Brazilians. The kidnappers force Abilio to write a note begging them to pay the ransom money now, or his captors will kill him. The Diniz family waits, desperate for news, and grows more frustrated as the days slip away. At any time, the kidnappers could panic and kill Abilio. The police try to assure them they're getting close. But the uncertainty gnaws at the family and the authorities. Interrogations continue. Slowly, carefully, police untangle a complex conspiracy, organized like a private army. Isabel Vincent of the Toronto Globe and Mail.
It was clear to the police from very early on that these people had some kind of paramilitary training, all of them. And it was clear that, all of the people knew how to use AK-47s. They could go to sleep at the drop of a hat when their commanders told them to go to sleep. They all had their various functions. They were highly organized and highly sophisticated.
All the suspects belong to various revolutionary groups, banding together for one reason: to finance terrorism through kidnapping. Extracting details takes time, and time is their enemy.
Só algumas pessoas sabiam o local correto do cativeiro.
Only a few people knew where Diniz was actually being held. The others only knew pieces of information. Some people would know activities up to a point. We had to interrogate with caution, one by one, to know the link where one piece ended and another would begin.
Five days into the abduction, a suspect finally cracks. He tells police where Abilio Diniz is being held. Taking one of the kidnapping suspects with them, authorities head to the house. The plan is to wait for more support, then move in fast. But 2 pumped-up officers jump the gun and start the takedown on their own. The heavily armed kidnappers see only the 2 officers and open fire. The police have lost the element of surprise. Soon, 200 tactical officers from the elite anti-kidnapping division surround the house. What should have been a surprise attack has become a tense standoff. The terrorists bring Abilio Diniz to a window. He's still alive, but they threaten to kill him if they don't get what they want. The police hope to avoid bloodshed. They encourage the kidnappers to pass notes back and forth. But the negotiations don't go well.
They demanded $30 million, an armored car, and an airplane to take them out of the country. These were their demands, and they didn't want to discuss them. Obviously, I absolutely didn't agree with any of those terms.
The Diniz family begins to lose hope. They don't think the police can bring Abilio home alive. The stalemate continues into the night. The tactical units take risks to stay visible and show movement outside. The kidnappers want to stop negotiating, but the police refuse to let them rest. The plan is to wear them down.
This was a very complicated situation, requiring lots of people from the police forces, the shock police, people from the military police who specialize in more violent conflicts. At any time, things could have gotten out of control.
They cut all power, plunging the kidnappers into darkness. It's a risk. No one can predict how the kidnappers will react. They might cave in and surrender, or they could panic and kill their hostage. An organized network of terrorist groups from different countries has kidnapped wealthy Brazilian businessman Abilio Diniz. The Brazilian police capture several members and surround the kidnappers in a house in Sao Paulo. The first night of the standoff passes with no surrender. In the morning, the kidnappers ask police to inform the media, and the cameras show up soon after. Isabel Vincent of the Toronto Globe and Mail.
The standoff was pretty tense. It lasted for hours with the kidnappers who were in the house threatening to kill Diniz and threatening to kill themselves.
On the same day, history is in the making in Brazil. The country holds its first democratic elections for president in over 30 years. But the Diniz kidnapping overshadows the election. Sao Paulo Anti-Kidnapping Division Chief Nelson Guimarães.
We restarted the negotiations, and they requested to speak with some ambassadors. The police offered them the Cardinal of Sao Paulo to intermediate.
Hoping to resolve the standoff peacefully, the Cardinal of Sao Paulo, a respected human rights advocate, carries messages between the kidnappers and police. Abilio's family watches the drama unfold on live television. They're willing to do whatever the kidnappers ask. police hold firm, not wanting to give in to terrorists. As the tension rises, no one outside knows the fate of Diniz. His captors, frustrated and cornered, might end it their way. Hours pass, and still no word. It doesn't look good. Then, on Sunday morning, 6 days since the kidnapping and 36 hours into the standoff, the exhausted kidnappers finally give it up. They announce they're coming out. 2 Canadians leave the house first. David Spencer, 26, and Christine Lamont, 30.
So when the kidnappers actually came out of the house, they were captured on live television. And this was going on at the same time that people were voting in the elections. So at the end of the day, you have these 10 kidnappers coming out, and also the election results. But the kidnapping was so sensational that it dwarfed anything that was going on in the elections.
The 8 remaining kidnappers are all Latin Americans. But still, no sign of Diniz, alive or dead. Brazilian police move into the house to search for Diniz. While the family and the country holds its breath. The investigators of Interpol tie together 2 seemingly unrelated cases. An explosion in Managua, Nicaragua in 1993 that exposes a weapons bunker used by terrorists. And the 1989 kidnapping of millionaire Abilio Diniz by a group of those terrorists in Sao Paulo, Brazil. After a tense standoff on live TV, the kidnappers finally give themselves up. But the fate of the victim is agonizingly uncertain. Police move through the house carefully. In the basement, they find a crude holding cell. It's dark. No movement. Inside, they find Abilio Diniz, alive. While millions watch on television, Abilio Diniz walks free after 6 days in solitary confinement. Sao Paulo Anti-Kidnapping Division Chief Nelson Guimarães.
The victim was confused, weak. He had no sense of day or night.
Police scour the house for evidence. The plywood cell, 1.5 by 3 meters, contains a lamp, a small mattress, and a portable toilet. The kidnappers controlled light, sound, and their victims' movement. Clearly, they are professionals. But who was their mastermind, and what were they out to accomplish? Interrogations begin for the newly captured kidnappers. Investigators discover that David Spencer, a Canadian who claims he is a human rights worker, rented the house under an alias. He and Christine Lamont make a bizarre assertion. They had no idea that Diniz was being held in their home. But police find evidence implicating Lamont and Spencer, numerous aliases, forged documents, and phony passports. Items more befitting international criminals than human rights workers. Even so, Canadian human rights advocates lobbied on their behalf, and Lamont and Spencer swore they were not involved.
A participação dos canadenses no sequestro.
The Canadians totally participated in this plot, from beginning to end. They rented a car, they rented real estate, and both of them were there, guarding the victim. They played a striking role in the plot.
In 1990, ignoring international uproar, a Brazilian judge sentences the pair to 28 years in prison. Still, they maintain their innocence. But 3 years later, and 3,600 miles away, when the 3 explosions rip through an auto repair shop in Nicaragua, Interpol discovers even more evidence connecting Lamont and Spencer to the terrorists. Journalist Isabel Vincent.
What linked the bunker to the Diniz kidnapping were a number of personal items from Christine Lamont and David Spencer. They were the link. The documents from Christine and David were false driver's licenses, all sorts of things to cover their tracks, false passports.
Brazilian investigator Nelson Guimarães believes that the Nicaraguan weapons bunker connection provides irrefutable proof of Spencer's and Lamont's guilt.
To the people who said that the kidnappers were human rights advocates, I would say that the reality is that these are cruel people who deprive other people of freedom.
Interpol's Romeo Tuma.
They were caught red-handed with the victim in the first place. In the second place, all the documents, most of the fake documents, American passports belonging to the Canadians, fake signatures, were linked to that criminal organization.
Now Interpol set its sights on breaking up that terrorist syndicate. With information gathered from the weapons bunker in Nicaragua, Interpol tracks down its members.
The biggest revelation that came out of the bunker explosion was the fact that these groups, these terrorist groups from different countries, were in fact working together and pooling their resources, both financial and military and everything else.
Interpol might have never uncovered the terror coalition if not for the careless mixing of C4 and detonators that ignited the catastrophic 1993 explosion. Police take 6 people into custody, including the night watchman of the auto repair shop in Nicaragua. In 1995, they're tried and convicted on charges ranging from property damage to document forgery. 2 others, including the auto repair shop owner Abilio Diniz, who fled to Cuba, are tried in absentia. They too are convicted and remain listed as threats to national security. After serving 10 years in Brazil, Lamont and Spencer win themselves a transfer to a Canadian jail and, remarkably, are released 10 weeks later. On rare occasions, international law enforcement officers discover a way into the shadowy world of terrorist organizations. The Nicaraguan explosion offered detailed intelligence on how efficiently these groups operate. The intel ultimately saves lives and helps fight terror.
We learned that there were a lot of people who were professionals, engineers, architects, who had come together in this group in order to build bunkers, study logistically how kidnappings could be carried out. There were a lot of strategy sessions going on, and certainly the documents found in Nicaragua illuminated a lot of that.
With that crime ring dissolved, Interpol stands better prepared to fight any others that come along. Brazilian Federal Police Chief Romeo Tuma, now a senator, makes fighting terrorism a priority.
This group provided the motivation for police to improve their methods to reduce the number of kidnappings. And after September 11th, terrorism became something that no international community accepts. So Interpol will be a permanent security force.
Recent history has shown that no nation on Earth is safe from terrorism, and the fight against it continues worldwide.